Welcome to our webinar sponsored by VirtuSense Technologies and CPS. We're going to talk today about the new challenges that will be faced in the coming year for senior living communities. Topics we'll discuss today include the reason behind the decrease in occupancy and ways to increase census, why the FCC is funding hundreds of millions of dollars for healthcare technology solutions, and the unveiling of our new initiative, Safer in Senior Living. My name is Emily Potts, and I'm the Marketing Communications Manager.
And I am Keaton O'Connor, the Customer Acquisition Specialist here at VirtuSense Technologies. We're very excited to be talking with you today, and we'd like to thank everyone who stuck around with us during the technical difficulties that we had at the original webinar, and looking forward to hearing any responses and answering any questions that might come. Just feel free to respond to the email that we send out with this video, and we've been more than happy to walk you through any and all questions that you might have. So let's jump right into it. Last year was an extremely difficult year for senior living. These are just a few of the articles that highlight some of the distrust that the media portrayed as senior living had with the general population. Now, COVID was bad enough, but this just sort of added insult to injury, as there were so many heroes who were working day in and day out, putting their lives and their livelihood on the line just to help those out who needed it the most and who were most affected by COVID-19. And probably one of the worst things that came as a result of last year is the way that things have ended up for us now. Occupancy is at a serious decline as of last year. You can see that whether you are a for-profit or not-for-profit community in senior living, it catapulted down during COVID-19, and for many reasons that we all know about. But what are we going to do now that we are in this position? How can we get back up to where occupancy is back to 90-95% plus? And how can we rebuild the trust that was more or less lost last year in senior living and senior living communities?
So as Keaton noted, senior living got a bad rap last year in the mainstream media, but the headlines were only half the story. There were in fact many great things that happened, as you see in these headlines, that were reported in industry magazines. Many administrators and caregivers rallied to come up with inventive ways to engage and entertain residents during the pandemic. For example, the executive team at Montgomery Place in Chicago moved into their community during the height of the pandemic to support their staff and be on call 24/7. They would walk the halls with food and beverage carts and check on residents several times a day to make sure they weren't declining as a result of being isolated in their apartments. They also broadcast news updates on their closed-circuit TV station 3 times a day, and their staff were thrilled that they were setting this great example, being on hand to help them out at all hours of the day. And residents really loved seeing their faces, their in-person smiles when they came by to say hello and check on them. The next slide shows a resident from Montgomery Place talking about her experience during the pandemic and how thankful she was to be there.
The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I tested positive for COVID. The Tuesday after Thanksgiving, I was badly dehydrated and I ended up in the hospital. When I came out, this was a good place to be because someone would bring me food, someone would check my oxygen levels, somebody would check my temperature. And where I was living before, I don't think I would have survived. I am feeling much better. Physical therapy made this a lot easier to deal with. And just having someone around me and watching over me was a good thing.
As you just heard that resident tell you about, she most likely would not have survived 2020 had she not been moved into senior living. unfortunately, we are getting to the point where these are the sorts of decisions are being made, is which is going to help me survive better. And the old things that used to sell, come to our community, try a meal by our 5-star chef. You're absolutely going to fall in love with our pool or our amazing views. Come play bridge with some of our community members. It's going to be a great time. Those things, while they certainly still do help, are not going to be the deciding factors anymore. They're kind of outdated selling points. We need to move on and think towards the future. As I mentioned before, that trust has gone down quite a bit, so now we need to start rebuilding. How can we help communicate to not only your potential residents, but to their family members that they're going to be safer living with you as opposed to living in their own homes? And you do have to keep in mind that the adult children especially are very well adept to using the internet, doing research, and looking for things that they know will be important just beyond the 5-star chefs and the amenities that come with senior living communities. So you do have to make sure that you're bragging about those things, which we'll get into in a second here.
So right now, senior living is often seen as a last resort, somewhere you have to go when there's simply no other option. This shouldn't be the case. Senior living exists and continues to exist because it fills a need within the market and leverages economics to provide more overall value to its residents than they could afford apart from it. We need to be promoting these efficiencies, like the practical aspects shown in the next slide. This is what we like to call the 3 C's: care, comfort, and community. The economy of scale doesn't just have to do with luxuries and creature comforts, but also applies in the area of health and safety. While many people would be unable to afford a full-time nurse on call 24/7, senior living communities can disperse the cost of this due to the fact that they don't need a nurse for every resident in the community. They only need enough nursing staff to handle things as they come up. When we're talking about comfort, I would also equate that to convenience and simplicity. For instance, an older adult living at home has to compensate for maintenance such as mowing the yard, property upkeep, cooking and cleaning. Property upkeep is difficult even under the best circumstances, but as we age, there are safety concerns. And in the event when you can't do these activities any longer, then you have to hire people to clean and cook and take care of your yard, and that gets really expensive. After adding everything up, it's actually more economical to be in a community. And speaking of community, this is the best part of living in a senior living community, is the engagement with other residents. They're more active and social, and that contributes to overall wellness. Another thing that's going to be a big selling factor is technology and accessibility. A lot of baby boomers are starting to come into senior living, and as we know, they're pretty tech savvy and will demand high-tech solutions when it comes to care and wellness. Here, Deborah Hart, the CEO of Montgomery Place, talks about the future of senior living.
COVID-19 is going to end up changing senior living, but it's not the only factor that's changing senior living. The baby boom generation is looking for a different product than what their parents looked for. So there's pivoting that is going on. It's just being enhanced significantly because of COVID. Technology is going to play a huge factor in this, and that's going to continue for quite a period of time. We know that that's going to impact senior living, but we also know the value of human contact. So we have to find a blend between how we can encourage people to stay connected on a one-to-one personal basis and still use technology. It'll be fun to watch.
As Deborah just mentioned, technology is going to be a necessity. So let's look at some of the technological solutions that are being employed right now. The FCC is currently on its 3rd round of funding and over $200 million into technological solutions that are prioritized around telehealth and remote patient monitoring. Two of the biggest topics that our government has decided are going to be part of the future moving forward. Quite a bit of hospitals and senior living communities have already taken advantage of using these new technological solutions, but it is just the beginning. It's not too late to start incorporating these with your communities. They are showing lots of great and promising results because doctors and nurses and even family members are, after last year, able to communicate with people who they weren't able to be in the same room with or who were hours away, and able to get the medical help that they needed or the emotional connection with their family members that they needed just at the touch of a button, which has been absolutely fantastic. And of course, with the shortage of support staff that we also saw this last year, remote patient monitoring and AI solutions have been incredibly helpful in taking care of some of the things that humans would normally have to, but monitoring for them. And that's quite a bit of the focus that we have at VirtuSense. But if you look to the future, telehealth is still there. I mean, it's here now, and it's going to be there later. And AI, using AI and for remote patient monitoring and for other purposes is going to be instrumental. These are the sorts of things that people such as the baby boomers are going to look for as they decide where they're going to live in the next stage of their lives. If you say that you have a technological community, but then you come in and say we have Wi-Fi everywhere, that's not going to cut it anymore. Wi-Fi is just the bare minimum. You need to be able to show that you are on the cutting edge of technology to show that, yes, we do care about your well-being, and we've invested in these technological solutions that have proven to show results that will keep you safer. Another really, really great solution is anything involving virtual reality. As we know, it's extremely important to keep your body active and healthy, but it's equally important to stimulate someone's mind. And through the use of VR, we're able to take leaps and bounds that we just couldn't before. So there are some really great things coming from that category as well. So I would encourage looking into that. But one of the things we'd like to showcase with VirtuSense is the VST Alert. It is our remote patient monitoring bed exit solution that uses machine vision and AI to let staff members know 30 to 60 seconds before a bed exit's about to occur. So you think about this for those frequent fallers, the people who, if they're just getting up to go to the bathroom, they probably have a good chance of falling. This would be a wonderful solution for them. And we actually worked with United Methodist Communities through part of the FCC grant that I had mentioned earlier. They were able to incorporate this technology into their communities. And they were seeing quite a few falls with injury at the peak of COVID-19. So it was that isolation, that lack of exercise, that depression that came from the year that was 2020. All of this fed into their residents becoming higher and higher fall risks, and they knew they had to take some drastic actions. Well, I don't even think they were prepared for the results that they saw from working with VirtuSense and using VST Alert. Through the help of our predictive AI, we were able to, and of course their incredible staff, we were able to decrease the amount of falls with injury by 71%. So we're not talking moving the ticker just a little bit. We're talking about changing the game completely. And it's not just VirtuSense. There are so many other technologies out there that I would strongly encourage looking into that are going to help your residents in an immense way. And these are the types of things that people are going to be looking for in the coming future. What are you doing to help improve your community? And of course, you don't just want to be looking at hindsight. VirtuSense is all about being predictive and proactive, not reactive, with our technological solutions. So this you see here is our founder, Deepak Gadipati. You might know him, you might not, but you've definitely used one of his products before. I'd wager quite a bit on that. He's actually the inventor of the bomb scanner that's found in just about every airport in America. The one where you walk in and put your hands over your head, that was actually him at the age of 26. And after he did that, he was doing some side work with the Department of Defense. But his grandmother, who was 68 years old at the time and in fantastic shape for her age, she would walk multiple miles every day, and she was on her way to the bank. During that time, which she had never done before, she experienced her first fall, and as a result, she broke her hip. Unfortunately, she died within 10 days from the injuries sustained from that very first fall, which led Deepak into doing a deep dive of why no one in the family knew that his grandmother was a fall risk. And what he found out was that two things were necessary to be considered a fall risk. One, you would have to have a fall, and two, you would have to report to someone that you had that fall. And looking at that, he said, this is an entirely reactive situation. There's really no proactive way to identify someone as a fall risk. So that's what led Deepak to come up with the creation of VirtuSense and our technological solutions, which are all about trying to identify who is a fall risk and trying to stop those initial falls from happening. It's his own personal vendetta against what happened with his grandma, because if he knew that she was at risk for a fall and maybe a family member was walking with her to the bank that day, maybe she wouldn't have fallen and maybe she'd still be with us today. But we need to look into the future and see what we could do to help those who are still with us, and predictive over reactive is always going to be the better solution. I can't stress that enough. But that's just one example of one of the great things that is happening in senior living today. If you'd like to learn about some other examples or share your own, I'd encourage you to look into what Emily's going to present right now.
So May 1st, we launched Safer in Senior Living, and that's saferandseniorliving.com. This is a site for the senior living industry. This is not a VirtuSense site. We want to invite residents, caregivers, senior living administrators to share their stories about the benefits of living in a community and how it contributes to health, safety, and longevity. We want to flip the script on the negative headlines surrounding senior living that dominated 2020 and highlight the positive outcomes. As an industry, let's join together and share these stories to ease anxieties and help people understand that they will have the greatest care in senior living communities. On the site, there's content that you can use. You can share it with your community. There's a download to get involved. It's free. There's no fee to get involved in this. Anyone is welcome to join this movement. And we want to spread the message and get everyone involved, because I think as an industry we'll be stronger together.
And everyone, we'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to this recording of our webinar. And just to harp on Emily's point there, even if you just visit the website, that would mean so much to us. Of course, we'd love for you to share some of your stories. Of course, we'd love for you to contribute. But even just visiting would mean a lot. Or if you're on social media and you throw on the hashtag Safer in Senior Living, that would mean the world to us as well. We just want to encourage everyone to get involved, because it truly is a team effort here, and together we can help to rebuild the industry and to regain some good news and to help share those stories about what did go well. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys for all the work you're doing. It's truly incredible, the year you've had to come through. So I'm so thankful as someone who has family members who are in senior living. It has made a world of difference to me, and looking forward to working with you in the future here.
Thank you so much for tuning in.